Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Acheng. I'm the founder and visionary of Sharia Clinic. You ask yourself, what is Sharia Clinic? Sharia Clinic is basically a legal aid firm. It's virtual, but we're working to get it on the ground and meeting people that seeks to undertake mentorship in all dimensions. I mentor lawyers, those in first years to fourth years, trainee advocates, anyone there. I also mentor high school students, and I'm even proceeding to primary students, mentoring them on issues to do with the law, their rights, and all that. And I also want to establish clubs within those schools I've mentioned. So within the primary schools, I want to establish a Sharia clinic club. Within the high schools, also a Sharia clinic club. In campus, I mentor mostly guys from JQuat, maybe know me more. I mentor them. I started mentoring guys from 2019, and then now it became more serious 21. So I do mentorship, uh, live mentorship. So today our guest is Christine Wanja. To read her profile. So Christine Wanja, yeah, she's my friend. But before being my friend, I want to read what she has done. So she attended JQuat Law School between 2015 to 2019. After graduating, she went to Kenya School of Law and all that. She was admitted last year to the bar. She attended her legal intern at JKIA Law Courts. I know some of you don't know we have law courts under JKIA. Let me just add someone who wants to enter. Meet. Yes. So as I was saying, yes. So she did her what is it called? Clinicals at JKIA. Then she did her pupillage at ZK Yego Law Offices. She was also a research assistant at NACADA, Ministry of Health, and Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. She was an associate under the IBC presidential petition last year. She was also a legal associate under Kanuri Kibui and Company Advocates. She was an associate advocate for Clear Kenya. I'm sure you know that NGO. Right now, she's an associate at Namasaka and Kariuki Advocates. Yes, the Nakuru branch. So she has a lot of experience in conveyancing, perfection of securities, takeovers, real estate transactions, incorporation of companies, commercial and corporate law. So that is the kind of person I've brought to you today. So she'll speak to you and she'll introduce herself and all that. So, Christine, the floor is yours. I'll switch off my camera and mic. Karibu.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you all that have tuned in today. My name is Wanja, and as Angela has said, currently I'm an associate at Namasaka and Karaoke Advocates. And what I wanted to speak about today was the transitioning into a new area of practice. And why I believe it's important is because I trained at ZKYEGO, we only did litigation, and my first job as an associate and after was as a litigation associate, and currently I am doing conveyancing. And it's important because somebody at some point in their legal career would probably want to change from one area of practice into another, and that is what happened with me, which was something that I had not planned. From when I was in law school, I actually thought that I would do litigation all through. I never considered myself a conveyancing person, and it also came as a shock to me. And so I share my journey because journeys are so different. Probably at Kenya School of Law, the way I would have wanted my journey to go was to probably get a place for pupillage and then get admitted, be retained in that firm, and then after 4 years become a senior associate in that firm, and then probably get to partner level and just stay in that one firm. But my journey did not go like that at all. It was unexpected. It has been with twists and turns. And when I was given this chance to become a conveyancing associate, I had not had any experience with conveyancing before in a corporate way, not in a big way. And when I applied for this position, they wanted someone who had practiced conveyancing for 2 years, and I had not. I had actually not practiced conveyancing before, but I applied anyway, and I was offered the position. I remember going for the third interview and being like, I don't think I am going to make the cut at the final interview. And I ended up making the cut. And I am actually very happy that I am working as a conveyancing advocate right now. So I think I can start by maybe highlighting some of the differences between litigation and conveyancing, because litigation, you're going to court every day. I remember when I was in litigation and I was at Kerugoya, every single day there was somewhere I was going. Maybe today I'm going to Baricho Law Court, tomorrow I'm going to Anguru Law Courts. And it was different matters. Sometimes it's a criminal matter, sometimes it's civil matter. But as a conveyancing advocate, I rarely ever leave the office. It's usually something that has to just do with staying in the office. It's either reviewing documents, drafting documents, calling clients, corresponding with the bank for security perfection. And there was that difference in ulikuwa umezoea to move from one place to another, but then now as a conveyancing advocate, you're staying in the office maybe the whole day. But then again, also the major difference is, in litigation, as in conveyancing, you're starting a transaction in answer from scratch. So nothing has gone wrong yet. But in litigation, for us to be litigating, something has already gone wrong. Something has gone wrong. And in conveyancing, you're starting the process. And so there were some of the things that I quickly had to learn for me to be able to start adopting and doing security perfection. For example, before then, I never used to pay any attention to titles, like as long as it's a title to land. But now as a conveyancing advocate, every time I look at a title, my mind has so many questions. Like, is it a certificate of title? Is it a certificate of lease? Yeah, because if it's a certificate of title, what are the cost implications? If it's a certificate of title, then we have rates. If it's a certificate of lease, then we have rates and rent. So that has to go into the fee cost advice immediately. And then where is this property located? What registry is it? Is it a registry that requires simultaneous, that accepts simultaneous registrations? For example, in a situation where it's a transfer in charge, so this person is buying land, but the amount is being financed by the bank. And so the bank, because I'm acting for the bank, does not want to release this money until this security has been registered. And so that transitioning period between you corresponding with the other advocates and making sure that you have received all the completion documents. And so conveyancing was so different in so many ways than litigation. Yeah. And so one of the things, so I was thinking about some of the keywords that I would use to describe the transition, and some of the things that have made it better. For example, I'd say is mentors in facilitating a smooth transition. For example, for me, I have very experienced colleagues, and they have really helped in me transitioning from a litigator to a conveyancer, if I can call myself that. In what way, for example? I'd say in litigation, for example, we don't have a lot of professional undertakings. But then in conveyancing, this person is selling you land, but you're being financed by the bank. And the bank cannot release this money until this security has been registered. And then this person who owns this land does not want to release this document, this original title, until they have been paid. Kwa hivyo, that places the situation, now the advocates between the parties now give a professional undertaking to each other. Now, as I'm giving you this professional undertaking, I'm saying that these documents are not going to be used for any other purpose apart from the registration of the security, that you will be paid your money within 14 days after the registration of the securities. So how did my colleagues help? Number one, for example, they helped me know how to review a professional undertaking. What am I looking for? What are the clauses that I should be? What are the things that I should actually be looking for? And one of the things, for example, that is so important is, as I was saying before, there are some registries that don't allow for simultaneous registration, for example, of any document. So you have to do it simultaneously. And so being able to, and so now in the professional undertaking, now your colleagues take you through, and they're saying now here in this professional undertaking, they have said that you have to register the documents simultaneously. But this registry doesn't allow for such things. So you need to review it and say that it can only happen sequentially, and something else, for example, returnable on a written demand. Now, for example, I'm saying, give me the title to this property. If you give me the title to this property so that I can register this property for you, we will return this document in case this transaction does not go through. However, something that is so important to write in a professional undertaking is returnable on written demand. That is different, because you can say returnable on demand, but what kind of demand is it? It has to be a written demand. And so some of these things I've actually learned from my colleagues who have gone out of their way to actually train me and ensure that I can be able to handle conveyancing transaction from start to end without any interference from anybody. And again, something else that I noticed when I was doing litigation, most of the time the fee would have been agreed before. And so when you're being given this transaction, the fee has already been agreed. But now as a conveyancer, the document, ukipewa those documents from start to finish, you're the one that is handling that transaction. So number one, you're doing a fee cost advice to this client. You're telling them how much it's going to cost. What are your direct costs? Something else that doesn't factor in litigation. Because in conveyancing, you always have to look at the direct costs, because you have to charge for the pre-search. You have to charge for registration. And you see, these are direct costs. This is not the money you are making, your legal fee kando. And then now you have the direct costs. And then now, for example, if it's registration, we charge 5,000. If it's a pre-search, we charge 2,500. If it's a post-search, 2,500. If it's LCB, to charge, if someone wants to go the normal board, it's 1,000. But if it's special, for example, here in Nakuru, it's 16,000. And so being able to know all those things has really, really helped in shaping my transition from litigation to conveyancing. I will also speak about being able to adapt very quickly, because you see, even when you are moving from one area of practice to another, the colleagues that are helping to transition you also have their files. They also have a lot of work. So even then, they don't have time to stand and teach you first. They are also moving as quickly as they can to do their files. And so once in a while, when they are really engaging you and they are teaching you some of these things, you are actually required to be very adaptable and learn quickly. And so I think finally, I'm also going to talk about how sometimes it emotionally, it will take an emotional toll, because now you're not familiar. This is unfamiliar territory. And so some of these things you don't know, most of these things you don't know, you're starting from scratch. And so being able, it's very vulnerable, because you have to ask questions, you have to depend on your colleagues sometimes to answer these questions. And so this is my 5th month. I'm finishing my 5th and starting my 6th in December. And the transition has been hard, but it has also been very evolving. I think I've evolved as an advocate. I think being able to speak about the versatility of the legal practice, that you can practice litigation, practice conveyancing, and then thereafter, maybe you want to get into arbitration, you start and then mediation, you start mediating. And I think just that versatility is so important for people to just be able to know that it's possible for you to transition from one area of law to another. And I think mostly I'm going to also speak shortly about the learning curve, because you also need to give yourself grace, because once you start, there are things that you will not know. For example, I had never done a takeover before, and a takeover is when one bank is taking over the loan of another bank. So person A had taken a loan of 5 million with KCB, but they want to now transfer that loan to maybe NCBA bank. Now that process of a takeover, that of now you have many parties to that transaction, and you, as the party that is representing the bank that is taking over, you need to be careful about, first of all, the professional undertaking, and then making sure that slowly you are corresponding with the other advocates. They release the documents to you. You make sure that you have done the registration within the agreed period of time, and then when you finish, you return all the documents to the bank. And so I think, having been a litigator and now as a conveyancing advocate, what are some of the things that I feel like that I learned from being a litigator that I have shifted into conveyancing? Number one is being careful. I think because in litigation you are handling something that has gone wrong. This is a transaction that started, and then there is now conflict about it, and they have decided to go to court. Now, if you have that knowledge, and me before I was doing, if you have that knowledge, and then now you've started now conveyancing, you always look at transactions from a place of, what if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? Do I have a clause that protects this scenario in case something goes wrong? How are we going to move forward? And so one of the things that it makes you careful about is like, who is signing documents. For example, when somebody is taking a loan and they come into your office and they want to sign the documents, and then they say, oh, sijakuja na bibi yangu ako nyumbani, unaweza nipe tu hizi documents niende nazo, bibi aende asainie nyumbani. And then now, as a litigator, having been done litigation, you know what the danger is, because literally that document can just be signed by anybody alafu iletwe. And because you are supposed to be security perfecting, you're supposed to make sure that this security is perfect. And then this document was signed by somebody who was not the spouse. So in case this thing goes to court, and then there's a problem and it goes to court, and then the bank loses their security because you did not make sure that it's the actual wife that actually signed the documents. So there are some of those transferable skills that help, because you have been a litigator before and now you're in conveyancing. And so that has been my journey up to where I am right now. How things happen by when I was I am finishing when I was still doing nation, I never bother myself with conveyancing at all, because in the firm that I was in, I was in charge of litigation, and we had in charge of conveyancing and land matters. Time I would involve myself with land matters was maybe if a client came in and he wasn't there and I needed to handle the client, or to sign a document because he wasn't there, and that was it. So then that short experience that I managed to have with conveyancing is what actually now comes and opens the door for me to actually come and practice conveyancing in a large scale corporate way. And so that 2 months, an intentional brushing my shoulders with conveyancing is what has actually gotten me here to where I am now. And I actually think just giving way to chance, that some things you've not planned, and then now you end up here and finding out that I actually prefer conveyancing. So I think I am going to take questions. Maybe if they are we have questions, so that I can answer questions for students who are still at Kenya School of Law, at undergraduate, for anyone who has a question about the legal practice, conveyancing. I think now I can just hand over the floor to you.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I don't know, now I can see you. So before we go to Dedan, There's someone who had asked a question. So maybe you can write them down. June had asked a question, then Dedan Shadrach will ask. So I have a question. I have two questions. So is it two or three? I can see on your LinkedIn, you talked about this and you said these are the areas we'll be looking at: experienced colleagues, unfamiliar territory, resilience, celebrating milestones, learning quickly, and most importantly, vulnerability. So I'd like you to expound on vulnerability and celebrating milestones. Then the second question, we mooted together, guys. We mooted together in CPIT. We were together in JKUAT Karen and we meted together. And CPIT is Center for Intellectual Property and IT Law, something. It's under Strathmore. There's a moot. There's usually a yearly moot. So maybe you can expound and tell the audience how mooting benefited you, and in terms of your research skills and how you're able to speak before crowds and even before the court, and even how you're able to address people. Did mooting help you, or is it something that you had all along? Then the last thing would be on mental health. How do you ensure that with all this work your mental health remains you remain sane throughout? Yeah, you're able to balance your life, your mental health, and everything. So those are three questions. Then now we'll proceed to the chat, then Dedan. So the chat will have June and then Dedan will speak. So yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angela. So I will start with your first question about being vulnerable and then celebrating milestones. Now, I was saying it's a vulnerable experience because it's very humbling. You know, when you are starting, you know, some of these people when you're working with, they started doing conveyancing at internship. Then they finished internship. During their pupillage, they went to firms that were focused on conveyancing. And then they have practiced for a number of years. And you are the only person who is new practicing conveyancing. It's humbling in the sense that they sometimes assume you should know things that you don't know, and like that process of asking for help, being able to and you know, when you're asking for help from a colleague who is very busy, you're the one who adapts to their calendar. So if they are only free during their lunch period, you are following them during that period to sit there so that they can answer that question. Yeah, so you don't have a lot of leeway for you to do what you want as much as someone who has practiced for longer. And then celebrating milestones, I actually have a list of all the mistakes that I have actually made from when I started conveyancing. And I celebrate milestones because there are things that I could not do before without making a certain mistake. And now, when you do that transaction, and it not even transaction, because a transaction can take long. Let's say it's one process that you have done, like you have completed process A to B. And before you would make a mistake, for example, like when you are doing documents, like Equity, they do a lot of documents. They don't only do a charge. You'll find they do a charge, they do a loan agreement, they do a corporate guarantee, they do a personal guarantee. And now, before, my work would be reviewed by another colleague to make sure that there's nothing I've missed. And before, there are things that I would miss because these documents are bulky, so there's something that you will miss. And then slowly by slowly, you begin giving your colleague to check, and then they finish and they have not seen anything to correct. That brings so much joy. Just celebrating those milestones, for me, I really go out of my way to celebrate myself. And then, how did mooting help me? Mooting helped me to be able to articulate the things that I am saying. But I think most importantly, how mooting helped me is to know the legal issue that we are dealing with. When clients come into the office, when I was in litigation and I was working at Clear Kenya, and then the client comes and they have a long story 30 minutes, they're still giving you this story. And being a muta helps you be like, what is the legal issue? Like being able to tell them what is the legal issue, because yes, I understand that your dad passed, mukafanya inheritance, brother yako hampendani, lakini kwa hii story yote, like what is the legal issue? Because the legal issue here is that your brother has encroached on your property, So being able to distinguish what is the most important thing in this whole story, mooting helped me a lot with that. It also, I think, helped me with my confidence. I'm very, I think I would say in situations where I'm required to be confident, I can be very confident. Yeah. So I think, actually, when I was going for interviews, I'd go for interviews with zero experience, but with a lot of audacity. And I had people who were interviewing me call me later and be like, okay, we can't give you the job, but you really have a good attitude. Liked you can position. And even for this position, afterwards, my boss opened up and told me that they actually considered me without the 2 years experience in conveyancing because I had a very good attitude. So I think mooting helped me with that, to be able to just have my thoughts, be able to articulate my thoughts, and be able to speak clearly. And then lastly, about mental health. Actually, how I've been dealing with this transition, because it has been hard, I actually paid for therapy. I actually started therapy because at some point it was so hard. Do you know when you have gotten something wrong and one of your values is competence, because you love being competent? It would get me down so bad. I would not eat. I would come home and I don't want to eat. I don't know. I don't want to pick calls. I'm not talking to people. So therapy has been helpful in the transition. But then also, I had an admin who is also new, and we have been talking to each other, sharing some of the difficulties, and sharing solutions together. And of course, a very supportive family. So yeah, mental health is very important, because what happens when you have a big job but you can't show up for it because you are too depressed to show up to work? And that is possible because the work environment can be very, very cruel. And so mental health, that is how I deal with mental health for me. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Now let me go to the chat box, then Ded and Shadrach. So the chat box, let me see. There was a question from June. I think June was the first one to ask. So from June, what are the common challenges faced by legal practitioners when diversifying into a different area of law, and how can this be mitigated? After that, then we'll hear from Ded and Shadrach.
Okay, so the common challenges that you're going to face if you're trying to transition is you don't really know what to look for. That's why I was saying, like, for example, when I started and I've been given a professional undertaking, I don't know what to check. I don't know what are the most important clauses, And so how you can mitigate that is having experienced colleagues that can take you through it. So for me, I'd have colleagues, I'd be like, okay, here, what should I be checking? Here, should I accept the 45 days? Or should I be saying more? Should I be saying less? And so they'll be like, this is the danger in accepting this. And then a colleague of mine will probably be like, for me, I would not accept that clause. And that curiosity of why would you not accept that clause, to be able to just know. So experienced colleagues can facilitate you quicker. That's the most common challenge, someone to actually teach you. Because imagine you're trying to start criminal law, and you don't have someone who is mentoring you to show you, here you don't accept this one you wait until close of prosecution case. It's so important to have someone to help you through. I think that for me would be the main challenge.
Thank you, Dedan Shadrach. Sorry, I was about to call you Dedan Kimathi. Dedan Shadrach. Then anyone else who has a question, please raise your hand. Dedan Shadrach, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Senior. You may not have been very wrong to refer to me as Dedan Kimathi. Most people call me that, in fact. It's the only way they remember me. They tend to forget Shadrach. Just to comment on Senior Miss Christine's comment on Clans having so many stories, and now the impact of mooting to help us deduce the issues from all those stories. It reminds me of a maxim in law that's called damnum sine injuria, where there is an injury that is caused, but there is no legal right to claim over that injury. But that, be that as it may, my question is one. I love the fact that you've transitioned from litigation and now you're in conveyancing. And that got me thinking, at least for senior Angela, she may have an understanding that I just completed my 4th year. I'll be joining KSL next year. And one thing that I can share, at least over the last 4 or so years of my experience in law school, is as a first year, a student is never aware of what they really want when it comes to the area to specialize in. But as we narrow towards 4th year, the interests start to narrow down to specific few or even one area. Now, I know that continues even as one gets into KSL and being admitted to the bar and now into practice. Now, that is where the challenge is, that for some of us, we may be at levels in our budding careers where it may be a bit tragic to narrow down on one area of interest. How was it for you? How was it for you, moving from litigation towards conveyancing? And is it possible that one does both until they are at a level where now they narrow down on one eventually? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dedan, for your question. I think I have written down how to be able to narrow down. And let me just speak about how the things that we end up practicing sometimes are not things that we were able to narrow down to, but things that we were able to find, like opportunity. So now when you go to Kenya School of Law and you are looking for places to now do your pupillage, and then now you go and find the firm that you have been taken for pupillage, they only do criminal law. So now you are now getting knowledge in criminal law, and then someone else was interested in conveyancing, but they have gone somewhere where people do litigation. So that one is also a matter of chance, a matter of opportunity. Let me not say chance, opportunity, because it depends where you're going to get a chance to do your pupillage. Some firms, which is what is ideal, they have departments for all, and then you are taken from one department to another. If you can get to a place like that, that can help you a lot in being able to narrow down what you want to do. For example, for me, we only did litigation, and so I did not have a chance to interact with litigation and conveyancing and alternative dispute resolution and choose one. It was just litigation, and so it's a product of opportunity. And then, is it possible to do both? It is possible to do both. For firms that are small, they do both, like they do litigation and they do conveyancing. But you find, like for where I am, we do majorly conveyancing, and because you're doing it a lot, or you have a lot of files, you don't even have time to go to court. So you can find firms where do both. You do conveyancing and then you do litigation. So it's possible to actually do both. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone with another question? We have like 10 minutes to go. We have 10 minutes to go. Anyone with another question? Anyone with another question? Please don't be shy. Yes, Prudence has a question. I don't know if you can see it on the chat box, Christine.
Just read it for me.
Okay, let me get it. Just a minute. The chat box. So, okay. Prudence asks, hi, Christine, without a will, but just verbal instructions on his wishes, can kids from previous marriage left out by the dad contest his instructions and inherit? So here's a situation: there's no will, but there are verbal instructions by the deceased on wishes. On wishes. So can kids from a previous marriage left out by the dad contest his instructions and inherit? So that's a succession case. I don't know if you are able to answer right now.
Yeah, I think I can answer from the knowledge I have from Kenya School of Law, because all kids are supposed to inherit automatically. So the will, there's no will, but then there was instructions. Does it pass as an oral will? I don't think just instructions, they do not pass the test of an oral will, and therefore the other kids would be able to inherit. But if they want an in-depth answer of that, they can always text me after this, and I can give an in-depth answer of that. But as a rule, all kids are supposed to inherit.
Okay, thank you. Have 8 more minutes. Anyone who has another question here, specifically with regards to what we've talked about law school and all that. If you need legal opinion, legal advice, you can see us, Kado. Yes, you have my number, Christine. Christine will share her contact or her card. So anyone, okay, as we wait for someone, okay, wait, as we wait for someone, so I have a question with regards to, just a minute. Aki unafungua maji. Wacha niulize swali mwanzo. Niko karibu kumaliza. Sorry, I had an issue. So Christine has presented very well about her journey in not law school, her journey in KSL and not KSL. What is it? Employment journey and all that. So I want to know, Christine, how did you survive law school? By law school, I mean the 4 years in undergraduate. And how did you survive KSL? Because I know there are students here, or some are still in undergraduate, some are going to KSL, some maybe have done KSL, they're waiting admission. How would you advise them? What are your tips generally? And we have 7 minutes. Yes. So you can maybe say that in 2 minutes, then we can wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay. So how did I survive law school? Okay. I am not one of those people who say law school was not hard, because for me, I found it very, very hard. And then I think I'm going to speak about Kenya School of Law, because I passed better at Kenya School of Law than I did at my undergraduate, and some of the things that made my performance better. I actually surprised myself, because my performance at Kenya School of Law was actually very good. And I think one of the things I think for me helped was because I understood my way. By then, I had already understood my way of revision. Now, there are people who, the way they revise is they start with reading. For me, that is not very effective. What works for me is being able to have question papers, and then being able to answer those questions, going through with question papers. And so for me, how I was able to actually pass Kenya School of Law well was because I revised a lot with question papers. Something else was I became serious about topic by topic. I would be aware of the topics that I'm weak, and then I would be aware of the topics that I'm strong. And so revising by topic is important, because when you're going to do the exam, you can always ask yourself, which topic are they trying to assess here? And so I remember, like in criminal litigation, there was a question that I narrowed down to either judicial review or habeas corpus. It was either of the two. And so you're looking at it and you're like, but this person is not in our jurisdiction, so it can't be habeas corpus. And then it was judicial review. And so now being able to revise topic by topic and being able to revise with question papers. So number one, recognizing your way of revising. Know how you are able to retain content. There are some people who are able to read and just understand, and I am not those people. And by the time you law, I had my weaknesses in revision, and I had been able to get better at that. Number 2, I had flashcards. Flashcards where I would write all the main important things in every topic, and then that flashcard I would carry everywhere with me. I remember going with it for dates, that flashcards. And I remember that unfortunate guy ended up knowing too much about law that they didn't need to know, but it was because I was revising, and that those flashcards really helped me to retain that material. And thirdly, being able to discussions. I think the discussions are important because sometimes you will not get anything new, but then every once in a while they will give you light bulb moments, then you're going to get a concept yenye ilikuwa imekushinda kushika, but because you've revised it with someone, and then it gives you, and then you're able to retain the information better. So for me, I think I'm just going to give those tips for Kenya School of Law because it's what I was able to do very well in. And I think yes. And then also making sure that you pass well for your oral exams, because your oral exams plus the other plus the project marks are going to take you a very, very, very long way. So, for example, in my orals, I got 18 out of 20 at KSL, and for our project, I think the least we had was 14, and so that makes a total of 32 out of 40. And so by the time you're going to do the written paper, you already have 32, which really goes a long way to help you pass the paper afterwards. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. That was you're a walking dictionary. You're using a lot of wisdom. So we have like less than 2 minutes. It's about to shut down. I want to, on behalf of the rest, maybe if you have questions, you'll post or you can get. Meanwhile, I think Christine, you can share your contact or something if they want to access you directly, or your email address. So kuna wenye wamejoin sahi, but don't worry, we'll have more of these sessions. So basically, Christine has taken us through her journey of not law school and also KSL, and majorly the transition from being a litigator and now being a conveyancer. She's told us a lot about that, and I hope that everyone has enjoyed the session and that you will come for more mentorship sessions. I'll be bringing more and more people as and when they, as long as I'm able to convince them to come on board. Christine, can you come back? Please.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, Christine will come back. So, Aki, the meeting is almost over. We have like 45 seconds. So, I'm sure you saw the link somewhere. If you have more questions or suggestions on how we can do this better and address your issues and needs, you have my number. You found the link somewhere. Get in touch with me. Christine is there. You can get in touch with both of us through LinkedIn. She's called Advocate Christine Wanja on LinkedIn. I'm Angela Achieng on LinkedIn. Sharia Clinic is on Instagram and on YouTube. So from me and from the rest, from Christine, it's a good night. We have very few seconds. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Please leave the session. Bye-bye. Leave the session. Bye. Have a good night. Iko karibu kuisha. Ama
Good night.
tumeongezewa minutes. Ui. Haya. I'm still seeing people. Okay, good night. Bye. Imeisha tu yenyewe. Kwani ulikuwa na kina nani? Kwani sikuangi peke yangu? Ngoja kidogo.